Okay, in this second video about machine learning and AI, we're going to focus a lot more on the actual AI machine learning prediction mechanism. And as I said in the previous video, that machine learning and AI is largely based on using data and making some predictions based on data. And to make this kind of predictions with data, it has to train the model. And what I'm going to do now is show you in this video that with machine learning, you have to do several processes before you can even get to a good prediction model, which is you have to be able to collect good data in order to train your prediction model. And some things that you would often see, maybe if you have ridden in a Tesla with FSD or the full self-driving, is that when the car makes mistakes or does something that the driver does not want, and you disengage it out of FSD, the Tesla has a way to get verbal input from the driver about why the driver decided to pull the car out of FSD. And what that is doing, it's training their AI model to better perform on the roads. And in a similar way, what we're doing here is we are collecting data and then trying to then improve the data to make a better prediction about something that needs to occur at current time or some future time. And I'm going to now focus in on the NFL and the since the NFL Super Bowl just ended in 2025. What I'm going to do is collect a lot of the data from the NFL that's publicly published, and then I will build a prediction about how some of their players should have performed. Okay, so the first thing is I have a little script here about how to set up your your environment so that you can run this type of machine learning prediction model. So I'm using UV with Python, and then after you activate it, you want to load up any kind of dependencies that are described in this requirements TXT. So after that is set up, what I have built is a set of scripts. So here's the script for setup, and then here is the script for collecting player data. So I have a script here called collect player data, and it goes out and then pulls down a bunch of publicly available player data across all the teams. And after all the data is collected, it pulls down all the data and then stores them locally um, in each file for each team. And this is based on the most recent season. So here's one for Arizona, here's one for Indiana, and so forth. And one thing to kind of pay attention and look at when you look at the data, and this is part of machine learning, is that sometimes there's a lot of missing data. Okay, so the first time I had built the script and pulled down some data, the, for example, the position of the player, or if you scroll over to the right and the columns, you'll see things like broad jump in, vertical jump in, and then you can see there other things like weight in pounds, height, and then height in feet and inches and so forth. That some of this data was either not available or it was not correctly being pulled. And so there are So a process you have to do with machine learning, and that is making sure that most of your data is available and that you can actually then use that data. So after you collect all this data, I have another script here called analyze player data. And this particular iteration of this script, I'm focusing just on running backs, since there are different kind of players who have different kind of focus. For example, the running backs are all about on the offense of running the ball on the ground. Um, there are other players like such as the quarterback. There's receivers, and then there's the defensive side about number of tackles, missed tackles, number of interceptions, and so forth. And but since I wanted to make this particular tutorial a little bit more focused on just running back, I did that and I collect and I focusing on just the running backs in the data files that I have. And after I build the data model or data frames, so what I do is after I've downloaded all the player data through the CSVs, then what I do is in Python build basically something called a data frame, which is kind of like an Excel spreadsheet kind of way. But it basically has columns and rows, just like you would see in a Excel spreadsheet. And after I've then uh, build up all this data and I focus in on just running backs. Okay, here I'm just focusing on running backs. And what I'm doing here is focusing on certain input measurements. In this case, if I look at the feature columns and see what's I defined for feature columns, I'm looking at the player's height, weight, and how they were measured for their vertical jumps and the broad jumps. And of course, there are many other types of measurements that you can possibly add to these feature columns. But for now, I made it so these four feature columns are what are used to then make a prediction about their average yards per game, and then their predicted total yards running during the season. And so after I've done that, I'm going to start doing what in machine learning that's called a building something called a linear regression model. So if you look in the script here, you'll see that I've focused in first on the feature columns and target columns. Target columns are our predicted. If you look at the definition of the target columns, it's the average running yards and then the actual total rushing yards. So we're going to build a model based on that data and then make a prediction and then actually compare it with the actuals that were measured for the past NFL season. And so here you'll see that I'm preparing the data model, and then here you can see that I try to clean up the data and focus in on just the feature columns and then the target columns. And in Python machine learning, we use something called a linear regression. We basically train the data based on the input and then the output. And then based on that, you can see that I've actually run and displayed. Um, so for each player here, you see the actual yards, average yards, their actual total yards per season, and then their predicted versions of here. And you can see that it's based on each team and their names. You could sort of scroll down, and then you can see something that's kind of interesting, and that is you see these NANs, which means that the data was for some reason not available for this particular player. So either the raw data was not available for this player, or maybe there was some sort of computational step that failed that made this particular value unavailable. So you kind of have to then look back then at the inputs for these in terms of the the height, weight, broad jump in, vertical jump in, and see whether the players had all this data. And that's how you basically have to then debug your prediction model to see how good your model is. And here you can see that it did make some predictions and compared it with the actuals. And in the next video, what I'll do is I'm going to then measure how good this model is compared to a measurement algorithm that machine learning scientists often use to measure how good their model is. Okay, so this is all I'll cover for today. And again, all this Python script is available on the link in the description of this video. And if you like this type of content, please subscribe and like the video. And also make comments about anything that you found interesting, or maybe if you see an error in the approach I took. It's not perfect, but it is at least a first attempt on making a prediction model based on the data I have available. All right, thank you.